Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The Polish Sejm has elected the deputies to be members of the National Council of the Judiciary. Members of the Civic Coalition, Poland 2050 and the Left were elected to the National Council of the Judiciary. The Sejm rejected 4 candidates put forward by the Law and Justice Party. All the candidates elected yesterday by the Sejm for the National Judicial Council were elected from clubs representing the new Sejm majority. 457 deputies took part in the vote. The absolute majority was 229 deputies. Ms. Kamila Gasiuk-Pichowicz received 246 votes. Mr. Tomasz Zimoch received 246 votes. Ms. Anna Maria Żukowska received 245 votes. Mr. Robert Kropiwnicki obtained 243 votes. Civic platform politicians say the period of repairing the rule of law in Poland is now beginning. Lawlessness will end. There will be an end to injustice, and the National Judicial Council will be made up of those who give the greatest guarantee of independence from politics. There will be no party appointees there to watch over the votes. Representatives of the Law and Justice Party think otherwise, predicting a gradual takeover of independent institutions by politicians of the incumbent opposition. They have been negating the National Judicial Council for the last 4 years, so I don't think there will be any change. So I rather expect just attempts at some kind of obstruction, attempts to stop the work of the National Judicial Council. In recent years, the opposition in the Sejm has boycotted the National Judicial Council, saying it is a political sham, which did not prevent them from electing their candidates yesterday. The Parliament during the last term committed a serious violation of the Constitution in this regard. Moreover, by electing the designation of 15 members of the National Judicial Council, by which it clearly exceeded its authority. The Constitution, however, makes it clear. Article 1874. The organisation, scope of activities and mode of work of the National Council of the Judiciary and the method of electing its members shall be determined by law. In contrast, the law precisely specifies the rules for electing judges to the National Council of the Judiciary. The Sejm shall elect from among judges of the Supreme Court, Common Courts, Administrative Courts and Military Courts 15 members of the Council for a joint 4-year term. The most important thing in all of this is that it is the Constitutional Court. Ultimately, I remind you that the Constitution says the Constitutional Court's rulings are final, that has decided that this is a constitutional solution. Among the elected deputies is Kamila Gasiuk-Pichowicz, who 2 years ago questioned the legitimacy of the body on which she will now sit. This is not an election to the National Council of the Judiciary, for this body does not exist, because its legal existence has been challenged by European tribunals and Polish courts. This is the fiction of Ziobro and Kaczynski, a pyramid of lawlessness. Interestingly, the TV and television station, during the broadcast of the election of deputies to the NCJ, shortly after the opposition's nominees were voted in, changed the caption so that the former National Council of the Judiciary became the National Council of the Judiciary. Law and Justice proposed 4 deputies to the NCJ: Marek Asta, Arkadiusz Mularczyk, Bartosz Kownacki and Kazimierz Smoliński. None of them were elected, as were none of the party's representatives to the Presidium of the Sejm and Senate the day before. A term of dictatorship, a term of absolute enforcement of the majority, a term that will show that in a democracy the majority is unwilling to consider the interests of the minority. Politicians in the new parliamentary majority have announced that the election of new members to the NCJ is only the first step on the road to repairing the rule of law. All the while, the next steps remain a mystery. The clean transportation zone in Warsaw will cover more than twice the area originally planned. Selected groups of drivers will gain privileges. Others must brace themselves for driving bans starting next July. These are the owners of petrol cars manufactured before 1997 or diesel cars older than 2006. Thus, the capital is to follow in the footsteps of Kraków and Wrocław. According to the draft resolution announced yesterday by Warsaw City Hall, the zone will cover the districts of Śródmieście, Żoliborz, Praga Północ, almost all of Ochota, Praga Południe and most of Mokotów. Those living inside the area and paying taxes in Warsaw will be exempt from the restrictions until the end of 2027, and from 2028 will not be able to enter the designated zone with a diesel car older than 13 years or a petrol vehicle older than 22 years. In subsequent years, the restrictions will be expanded to include newer and newer cars. Those living outside the designated area will no longer be able to enter the zone with such vehicles from July 2024. First of all, this pertains to residents in and around Warsaw who need to be in contact with local government institutions and provincial institutions. This would be either the need to use public transportation, where I will remind you all the time in Warsaw there is a lack of good interchanges or parking lots, the so-called park and drive. There are still not enough of them. Agglomeration rail is already over overloaded and full during rush hours before city limits. In addition to inconveniencing ordinary drivers, there will be increased costs for service industries relying on deliveries and road transportation. In the coming days, the Warsaw Council will consider a new proposal for a clean transportation zone. I think that this draft will be introduced, but whether it will be introduced in the form that the media presented it yesterday, it is difficult for me to say at the moment, because the councillors also have comments on this draft. There are already more than 320 clean transport zones in Europe, mostly in Germany and Italy. The first one in Poland will appear as early as the 1st of July next year in Krakow. It is questionable whether to deprive some 100,000 residents of the ability to move around the city. This zone, voted by the councillors of Civic Platform and Friendly Krakow, is much more restrictive than the similar zone that is in force in Berlin, Germany. The direction of climate change in Europe has been set by the Fit for 55 package as part of the European Green Deal. Among other things, the package sets emission standards for cars and vans. Eurocrats want to have an exclusive mandate to legislate on climate issues. Among other things, this will come after the possible changes to the EU treaties. This will be done, of course, in relation to the need for change. This will be the thesis in connection with the enlargement of the European Union. And 2 days ago, there was a first meeting with Mr. Charles Michel, convened in Berlin with the participation of a couple of countries. It's very interesting why there is very little talk about it at all. The Fit for 55 package will entail a huge increase in electricity and heating prices, as the changes will hit Poland's coal-based energy industry. An even more ambitious proposal to curb emissions was included in the Citizens' Coalition 100 concrete measures for the first 100 days of government. We will present a detailed energy transition plan to reduce CO2 emissions by 75% by 2030. Tusk wants to speed up the process. Decarbonisation means closing Polish mines. We will get our energy from renewable energy sources, in other words, from German wind farms. In addition, according to the directive, the sale of new internal combustion engine cars will be banned in the European Union from 2040. The European Union as a whole has agreed that it wants to set this bar high, that is, that in 2035 it will not be possible to buy a new internal combustion engine car. It remains to be seen whether such an official distribution policy will stand the test of time. It is known that alternative drive cars are still a big expense, much higher than conventional cars, and the common climate policy must not leave anyone overboard, that is, the poorer ones must be remembered as well. So for now we see the stick, but there should also be a carrot. The cost of the Fit for 55 package for Poland over the next few years is nearly 200 billion euros. The advent of clean air zones free of internal combustion engine cars is only the beginning of the climate transformation in Poland. In India, dozens of upset workers and family members protested outside the collapsed tunnel and called for the quick rescue of 40 fellow construction workers still trapped inside it. The nature of the rock is very delicate. The more we drill, the more the ground slides, but we continue to try all the techniques available to us. The latest machine we purchased was transported by plane from Delhi and will land at our airport in an hour. Rescuers have been trying to reach the workers for the past 3 days and hope to have a heavy drilling machine transported by air to the site soon. The authorities have assured them that the workers are safe and that rescuers can communicate with them and send them food, water and oxygen through a pipe several centimetres in diameter. Currently, huge boulders are obstructing the digging of an evacuation route. A specialised high-powered drilling machine has been transported by air from New Delhi, some 400 kilometres to the south, to cut through the rocks and open the way to the trapped men. 36 people died on the spot and at least 10 were taken to hospital in a critical condition following an accident involving a bus that fell into a chasm in the Himalayas in the Indian-controlled Kashmir. 36 people were killed on the spot and 6 of the 19 injured were seriously injured. Some of the injured have been transferred to the government medical school in Dodda and some to Jammu. We are providing them with all possible assistance. At least 36 people were killed after a bus fell into a ravine in India's Jammu, Kashmir. According to local media, the bus fell into a 300-metre gorge in Doda district. Buses in Kashmir are often overcrowded and accidents on the narrow mountain roads are common. The bus, which can accommodate 42 passengers, was heading to the city of Jammu, located in the northernmost tip of India. The vehicle left the mountain road and rolled 200 metres down a rocky slope. The injured were taken to nearby health facilities and at least 10 were transported in critical condition to a hospital in Jammu. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.